You guys may follow after me. Thanks so much for coming to this screening site. This is a conversation with BENJ PASEK. That's for you to wave, or
That's my name. Hi, guys.
and Justin Paul. So interestingly enough, when I first met BENJ and Justin, they had not. Well, I mean, just a really quick recap if you don't know who they are. Last year they won the Oscar, the Critics' Choice, and the Golden Globe for writing the lyrics for La La Land. Recently you've won a Grammy for Dear Evan Hansen. That's right. You meant to nod and agree.
This is very awkward.
For Best Cast Album, it's really important that I go through this stuff, and I'll explain in a minute why. For Best Cast Album, they won a Grammy. They also won the Tony. And for Best Original Score. Is that right? Dear Evan Hansen, we should talk about that name.
We originally were telling Michael about it, and we were like, we have this show. It's called Dear Evan Hansen. He's like,
I think sounds good. Change the name.
Change the name.
And then this year you won the Golden Globe for This Is Me in the film you just saw, which is also nominated for Best Original Song. It got a nomination for the Critics' Choice and the Academy Awards. The song This Is Me is on the album for the soundtrack, which was in the Billboard's #1 position in the Billboard 200 for 2 weeks, and next week is going platinum.
Wow.
So all of this is to tell you that they had none of that when I first met them.
Right.
So you do the math.
But I had to sell in these two guys from Broadway to the studio to write the songs for a big major motion picture with Hugh Jackman, and it didn't go so well. What was the boast at the time? If I just went through the sort of boasts of today, what was the big selling point at the time?
The real one or the one that you made up? The real one.
What was the real one?
It would have been that we had a show at that time. We had a show that played on Broadway for like 7 weeks. Christmas Story played on Broadway.
Was that Broadway proper? Or?
Yeah, it technically was Broadway. It was a limited engagement. It only plays around the holidays, obviously. So we had that show, and we had like a couple of
Dogfight off Broadway.
Yeah, a show called Dogfight that was off.
Well, we also did an adaptation of James and the Giant Peach, but it was at the biggest theater that it played at was Seattle Children's Theater, and Michael really ran with that.
Well, so no one at that time was really interested, except for Michael, who we had gotten to actually work with. It feels like there's a lot of weird deception in this story, which there shouldn't be. But I remember even the first time that Michael came to meet with us and to hear something that we had written. We had written basically our first draft of what would become A Million Dreams from this movie, and he came to the house that we were staying at in LA at the time, and he was like, he of course had never heard of us either, and he was like, I'm gonna see what these guys are about and see what the song is. And when he came over, I know that he told us later on he was really impressed because we were staying in this really big house in Toluca Lake, and we had a beautiful piano and like all this stuff.
I was like,
and
who are these guys?
Right. He's like, I've never heard of them, but they must have done something. We hadn't done anything. It's just that we had literally family friends who their house was on the market, but it hadn't sold yet. So they let us just stay there for free for a couple months. And we rented a piano that looked a lot nicer than we could afford ever if we bought it. And so he'd coming to their crib in Toluca Lake, checking it out. It's like, none of it was ours. None of it at all. But then he had to sell us to Fox, and they didn't know who we were either. So he
knew that the most recognizable title of anything that we had worked on was James and the Giant Peach, even though that was not on Broadway, and it wasn't off Broadway or off Broadway. It was literally at Seattle Children's Theater. And he went into the studio, and he's getting really excited about.
When we went to meet everyone for the first time, he was like, "Oh, I should just tell you guys this, just so you know. When you meet the people from Fox, I told them that you guys won the Tony Award for James the Giant Peach on Broadway. wait, just hold on a second. What?
We're like, you're aware that James the Giant Peach has never been on Broadway. He's like, this is LA, no one cares or knows.
No one checks the Tonys here.
He's like, yeah. He's like, they did James and Giant Peach on Broadway. They're like, oh yeah, of course. They're like, it won the Tony, you know. They're like, yeah, of course.
So when they actually did win the Tony, I actually texted them and said, it's no longer a lie.
But by the way, isn't that the most Barnum-esque thing you've ever heard? Like he's so ready to direct this movie.
But to be fair, and this is actually a really good point, even then when they were on and they were writing songs, and in the very first meeting we had, they played a version of Million Dreams. And that, in that moment, I was like, not only do these two understand the film that I hope to one day make, because you got to also remember that we worked on this film for many years and it wasn't a greenlit film. So, year after year, we would continue to write music, and glorious music, that in our darker moments we would joke, maybe the world will never hear this. And
we kind of weren't joking that much, though.
In those dark moments, it wasn't a joke.
Well, Michael would always take footage of like our darkest hours, of us like, at 4 o'clock in the morning, like on the floor, like crying, sweating, just wanting to die. And we would always be like, this is either going to be like really funny one day or like the most tragic thing in the world of like the songs that never came to fruition.
Yeah, it was either going to be like my Lost in La Mancha, so I was sort of documenting it for that in case that's all we ever got to do. If anyone hasn't seen Lost in La Mancha, it's Terry Gilliam trying to make the film. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's one of the great films. I hear he's actually making it. Yeah. Anyway, back to Showman. But even once we had these amazing songs and we played them for people, and people were really into the songs, it still wasn't a situation where they sort of said, Benj and Justin, you are going to get to write the music for the film. Like, every single song, there was still other songwriters submitting tracks.
It was very awkward.
It was really awkward. Yeah.
No, it was I sort of the funny thing about it is that we've yet to get the offer to be the songwriters of The Greatest Showman. No one's ever called us and been like, you guys should be the songwriters. It was, every song was sort of its own like death match in a way, because it was. And look, we were so grateful, because the thing that he's not saying is that Michael really became the third songwriter of all these songs. And I would say like the silent collaborator, but he was not silent at all in the collaboration. We, prior to working on this movie, had never really sort of like, not that it's so secret and exciting, it's more often like miserable and trying to just bang our heads against
like
the
watching
wall.
two brothers fight.
Yeah. But we had never sort of like had someone inside our writing process in the writing room, and Michael had such a vision for each of these song moments, and loves music so much and cares so much about music and appreciates it and has such a depth of knowledge about it that he really, I think because we sort of quickly realized that, we sort of, in a somewhat unceremonious kind of just like natural seeping in kind of way, he sort of just became a collaborator for us, and was in the room to the point of I'd play something on the piano and he'd be like, no, that's not it, and really like giving instant feedback, or he'd go, I need to sit with this, and then come back to us the next day being like, this part's working, and then when you get to that one moment, it's just not delivering what I want it to be, can you try something else? And really pushed us in every song moment, as a constant editor and a very musical, tasteful editor, and we really credit him for helping guide us with all the song moments.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, and that's lovely for you to say, but
and that's not a Barnum lie. That is really true.
Yeah, but also for me, having two people who would commit to writing and rewriting, and that process in some songs it was, you had those magic moments where in very few drafts it became the song that you heard, and they were incredible moments where you hear something and you're like, wow. And I think that, you know, we talk a little bit about This Is Me because that was quite late in the writing process. It was the second last song that Benj and Justin delivered for the film, but by that stage we sort of had this threat of, unless this song, I mean, we had that threat a few times of like, unless you get this song, the film's not going to happen. And it became a little bit a bit like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because we'd just been told that too many times, and we're a bit, over the course of 3 years, we're a bit sick of hearing that. But to be honest, we had this incredibly important workshop that took, in terms of musical theatre, the best way to show a musical is just to get everyone in the room and to stand around a piano and to read the script, and when it's your turn to sing, just stand up next to the piano and sing the song. But the problem is to organize the people that needed to be in the room. It took 7 months to get a date that Hugh, the producers, and the head of the studio could all agree on. And we were thinking like, in 3 weeks, we'll get everyone together.
I'm available tomorrow.
We're like, we can do it next
Is that a bad
week.
thing?
When can Hugh do it, and the studio do it, and the producers do it? And then they came back with this date that was 7 months away. And we were like, what? And so just before this very important read-through, we knew that we had to get the Oddities song, because that was sort of the heart of the film. And this anthem, which was kind of our I Am What I Am, if you've seen La Cage. It wasn't a small task to say to the guys, can you please write an anthem that is the heart of the film?
And it's actually really what it was like. And there was another song in that place that someone else had written, and it was a very, it was sort of a happy-go-lucky, sort of sweet, sort of ukulele
Kind of like
tune.
a Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Yeah, that Tom Thumb was singing. And Michael kept being like, you're going to write a new song for this moment, and it's going to be the anthem of the film. This is going to be the core, like, this is going to be the song moment that people talk about. And we're like, what are you talking about? Because the moment as we knew it was just not that moment. And he was like, guys, I'm telling you. And he kept saying this, and we probably pushed it off for weeks and weeks and months. Because we're like, we're usually on board with you, Michael. Like, we don't get this. We don't get what you're saying about this. And, but we kept talking about it, and he was insistent this would be a defining moment. This would be a huge moment. And
what's so cool is that we had lots of readings and lots of workshops, and we got to have members of the cast come back and participate. And so the woman who played the Bearded Lady is somebody that we knew from the Broadway community, and she was cast in the readings, right. And she was just basically singing like
in the ensemble,
like the alto part, basically. Yeah. And she's really talented, but she's not.
She did a great job with that alto part.
Yeah, great
really
alto
killed
line.
the alto part.
Great alto line.
I should hear it someday. I hope you get to.
But she was just like, okay, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna just be in the ensemble, and we kind of we were like, okay, we could write a song for Tom Thumb, but
we kept trying to envision it, we couldn't figure it out, and then we were all talking about it, and it was like, can this be a song for the Bearded
Lady? And Michael was like, yeah, okay, that could be. And then as soon as we began to think about it for Keala Settle and her voice and everything that she brings to a performance, whether that's her own life experience or her gutsy, everything about her is gutsy and visceral and raw and heartfelt and true
and unapologetic
and incredibly unapologetic. She makes me feel like I can do anything that I never thought that I could do. She's just such a powerful presence. So to begin to think about the song from her perspective and to think about how we would write it for that voice changed everything for us. And knowing that she was going to participate in this, I guess, big workshop made it very, very clear the kind of direction and the kind of style and the message and everything kind of coalesced in a beautiful way that was really unexpected. But we only had like 5 days to write it, and it was crazy, and we wrote half of it on an airplane, and it's like a crazy story.
There's a great photo I took of Benj in the foreground on the laptop writing lyrics, and then on the next seat across on the aeroplane is Justin with one of those little breakout MIDI keyboards. It's about this big, and he's trying to work out the music for This Is Me. And we landed, and then we had this incredible turnaround where we were at my apartment, and we were producing the beats that we were then going to go into the studio with the next day and record the vocals. And it was just like this sort of 3-day jam. I don't even know it was 3 days, maybe it was 2 days.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, once the actual workshop happened, that was a kind of crazy story in and of itself, of Kayala kind of claiming that performance. I know you can. There's a video of it that's online.
Yeah, there's a video of that moment online. Kiel didn't want to step forward and sing the song. She kept every time we rehearsed it, she would stand behind the music stand, and I kept saying, "Yeah, that's great. Have you been listening to the lyrics of the song? Like, you need to step forward in front of the music stand because you're sort of hiding behind it and you're singing 'This Is Me.'" And she refused to do it. And
I think we like our ask of her was like, okay, we know like we've been kind of rehearsing and stuff like that, but when we do it on the day, like in the performance, like everybody's here, everybody's flew in for this big thing. They're basically like what we were trying not to say is like they're judging whether they're ever going to do this film or not based on your performance, kind of. But like that was basically what it was. So we were like, just really like feel free. Like you always trying to find those ways to talk to an actor. It's like really feel free. Like don't feel like you're being like chained by anything. Like don't feel like we're holding you back. She's like, you're not holding me back. We're like, yeah. Don't feel like we're holding you back. Like you can like feel free to just. And I think our ask was like, put the music stand down and just feel like you can engage with the audience and sing with them, whatever.
And I think she was really scared though too,
Yeah.
because she hadn't been, she had not had the spotlight on her in these performances. It was Hugh Jackman, you know what I mean?
Right.
And when you're on Broadway and like Hugh is in the room, you're very intimidated.
And she was, I don't know if she ever been I don't think she'd been in a film before. Like that was not a known thing to her at all. And so the ask was like, put the music stand down and just sing to everyone. What that turned into was her putting the music stand down, like walking out behind the music stand, walking just into the middle of the like little stage area between. We're like, oh wait, what's going? Like, wait, what is she doing? Why is she doing this? What's happening?
Kayala's going rogue.
you can actually see Justin's face on the piano because he's like this. He's like,
Wait, okay, we said to like put the music stand down and sing out, but then she walks out into the middle of the ring, so to speak, and sang this song, and then we were like, here's the most important moment. Like you have this moment, there's a moment in the song where everything sort of like
slows down,
focuses down on her, and it's just the spot on her, and it's just her moment, and we're like, that's the moment where you can connect with the audience. And what we're thinking is like connect with the film executives who were there to like think that like,
Stacey Snider is here,
right? Like make Stacey Snider cry. Like that's the moment. And we're like, that's your big moment. So like she's out in the middle of the ring. We're expecting in that moment that'll be the moment where everyone stops singing. It's just her. I'm playing the piano, and she's just there engaging with them. And then again, we're like, what's going on? We should get right to that moment. She literally turns away from the whole audience, and we're like, what is she doing? And but it was amazing. She, I know she talks about it, but like she really felt like Hugh had been leading her through that whole process because she had never experienced something like that before, and he really sort of adopted her and took her under his wing. And so I think for whatever emotional reason and what was going on with her at that moment, she turned around and just sang that verse to Hugh.
She grabbed his hand.
Yeah, it was like this amazing moment of connection. And we were like, what's she doing? No one in the audience is getting to see it. But like, it was a great example of like, that wasn't what that was for. That was for her and for Hugh sharing that moment. And we got to all sort of be part of it. And that was our gift, was just getting to watch them connect in that way and have her have that experience.
Yeah, and of course, we you have no idea when you put somebody who doesn't have any film credits, you can't guarantee that they're going to ever be in the movie. And after she delivered that performance, I remember after the workshop was over, all the execs go up to her and
They're like, we have no idea who you are, but
you just booked your first major motion picture.
It was a real moment. And Justin, of course, is hammering away on the piano during all of this. And so I'm sitting there, and Ben just sitting behind me. And so in all of these moments, when literally the whole room erupts, I've got Benj yelling in my ear, just screaming in my ear.
Just living. Living.
during from now on, Justin was playing faster and faster and faster because the room was just going from like.
Well, the other element of that, when we're just like telling war stories now, but it ended up well because we have a movie. But Hugh actually had surgery the day before and was told by his doctor that he wasn't going to be able to sing, and we had already tried to schedule this workshop for 7 months. So Michael, in his Barnum-esque way, did not tell any of the studio executives that Hugh was not going to be singing that day.
Don't tell anyone this. He was like, here's what's going to happen. This was on you, pal. So tomorrow, you're going to stand up there right before the workshop starts and be like, hey, everybody, I'm charming. I'm Hugh Jackman. FYI, I'm not singing during this presentation.
I'm just going to mouth all the words.
It's
like, Hugh actually was really nervous about that because like the day before, when he called me and said this, and I said, you're not going to tell anyone. He was like, he's very Australian. He goes, mate, do you think that's a good idea? And I said, Hugh, that is the only idea.
No one's getting on a plane if they know you're not singing. That's the way it is. And therefore, there's no workshop, therefore, there's no film. I mean, that was sort of...
And he said, so when am I going to tell them? I was like...
Good question. Figure it out.
You're going to tell them, just like they do on Broadway. Once everyone's seated, you're going to make the announcement that the role of Hugh Jackman will not be sung by you. And he actually was really nervous. Like, if you watch the footage,
he is nervous.
He's really nervous. He says, he actually fumbles the line. He says, and the doctor said that I couldn't sing. He used the past tense. So even when he told them, people are like...
No, he just meant sang.
But he's singing today, right?
But also, we were terrified too because everyone had been working so hard to lead up to this. As he said, 7 months we waited for this moment. So when he came in, like, it's probably the only time in my life I ever felt justified to like make demands of Hugh Jackman. He walked in and I was like, Hugh? He's like, I know, mate, I know. But like, come here. And he like comes over to the piano. I was like, here's the thing. Like, everyone's here to see you. I know you can't sing, but while I'm singing your songs or another one of the cast members are singing your songs, like, you need to stand here. I know you probably feel awkward, but you need to like gesticulate and like act like you're performing these songs because like that's what everyone wants to see. So it was like really awkward, but kind of worked.
Kind of weird.
Every time he had a song, he'd just come up there and he'd like, this is the piano, and he'd sort of just like. He's just like being Hugh Jackman, and it kind of worked. Like, he's like doing gestures, and we're singing for him.
But that lasted for 2 hours, and by the time that we get to the song From Now On, another performer began to sing the song, and Hugh's like looking around, and
but he's not gesticulating. He's standing with his hands on his hips, looking really annoyed.
And you're like,
and I'm looking at him, going,
what's going on? And
bring us home.
And by the time that the first chorus happens, you see he like begins to sing, and he had like, what was it? He had some sort of surgery.
He had stitches because he had a cancer removed from his nose. So
right.
It was a serious operation. They had 40 stitches, and the doctor had said you can't sing because you're going to tear your stitches, and there's going to be significant scarring and infection if you do it.
But that first chorus, he starts to sing, and we're like, is he singing? What's happening?
Yeah.
And the other cast member, he's like,
and I was like, oh, that's nice. He's gonna do like the first chorus of that song is very low and it's very sort of internal and to yourself. And so he got to the end of it, and I was like, that's cool. Like, he gave them a little thing.
And I, of course, was looking at him going, you better fucking sing the next bit. I was just staring at him like,
and so I'm sitting there at the piano, I'm like, okay, start the second verse, and like, let's see. And like, I was thinking that the guy who was singing for him wouldn't sing, because he was like, okay, Hugh's singing now. But then I was, in my head, I'm like, Hugh's not going to sing the second verse. It jumps an octave. It goes higher. So, like, I'm actually sitting there ready, being like, I'm going to jump in here and start singing. I'm, like, ready to be like, hey, you drink champagne. And, like, we're, like, getting there. Da, 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 da. And he's like, I drank champagne. I'm like, okay, we're off and running. Like, here goes Hugh.
And when you don't see Hugh Jackman sing for 2 hours and then he starts to sing, you're like, oh my god! Like it made the whole thing like, oh my god, Hugh Jackman sing! Like we lost our minds. So when Michael's talking about me like freaking out in the back, this is why I started to tell the story. I was like out of control. I was like, and I kept just like screaming in your ear. I was like, I am living.
It was so brilliant that he planned that.
People just started. It was like a religious experience. Like people just started testifying. It was like it was like the person who couldn't walk just got up out of their wheelchair, and then people were just all of a sudden like,
oh my god! People like talking in tongues, and and Hugh just like keeps like dabbing his nose to like see if there's blood throughout the whole thing. Let's say if there's no blood, he just keeps belting. It was thrilling. So actually, both of those videos we have you then put online. So if you guys want to watch after we've now told the story, it's very fun to watch because you can actually see all these things happen.
Watch Justin in the background and watch the tempo of the song. Just like it was amazing. It was actually one of those just magic moments on this film. And the film wouldn't have happened if it didn't.
That's true.
If those things didn't come together. The very last song that they wrote was the Jenny Lynn song, Never Enough. And
we wrote once filming had started.
we'd already started filming.
Well, it was our 5th or 6th version of that song too, and Michael would always just veto anything that we wrote. And I remember, do you remember the prank we pulled on you?
Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not under a lot of pressure. It's my first film. I'm just missing a song. Having just seen the film.
We were like, can you schedule this for like January, February? He's like, what's my other choice? You haven't written it. We're like, great, thank you.
It's kind of an important moment in the film. There's a lot of story things that go down during it. So, as suggested, no, we're not cutting the song. So they would be writing at Steiner where we were shooting in this back room. It wasn't glamorous. And I would go in to listen and they would say, oh, we've got it. And
we kept not having it. He'd be like, "You haven't."
Well, he'd be like either in prep or shooting. Like we were into production at that point, and he'd like on breaks from like shooting a feature film, he'd come in and be like, "Guys, what do you got? What are you playing? What do you have?"
We felt so bad. We were like, "No, we don't have it. No, we don't have it." So eventually, he came in one day. And he's like, "Guys, do you have it?" And we were like, "Yeah, we got it."
They were. In hindsight, they were way too happy. Like even when they have a song, they're not that happy. And this day, they were so happy.
And we made up a little ditty. And
there is video that you'll never see.
No one will ever see this, but we made up a song called "Circus Time with You." It was kind of an improv.
Sang it from start to finish, and it wasn't funny at the time. It's only funny now that we have this amazing song. But I mean, that's to be honest, that is why I am eternally grateful and very, very happy for the success that the two men on my right have had since we started this process, is that they were my creative partners on creating the film you just watched, and they wrote and rewrote and worked all night and fretted and pushed each other to create something that would stand the test of time, and that was what we put on each other. And it's one thing to do even if you knew you were doing all the songs for the film, you would have this incredible investment because you were the songwriters of The Greatest Showman. They didn't have that. We didn't have a greenlit film, so you basically, after 3 years of working, you still don't know whether the film's going to get made or not. And yet we just kept going, and that is that's a testament to the incredible creative force that is sitting to my right, because they just kept coming back at it, and that is why the music is so incredible. They just kept pushing and pushing until all three of us would sit there and agree that this is at the caliber, and this is at the level of the sort of musicals that we all grew up loving. And
or just Michael will let us go to bed now. Like sometimes that was the bar.
There's actually a video conversation where Justin, in all seriousness, is talking to Benj and me about how much the human body needs sleep-wise. And he looks terrible. He looks like he's sweating milk.
And with that, thank you guys so much for coming. But thank you all so much. The one thing that I'll just say is because we can't let that be the last thing, which is that Michael was the creative force behind this entire movie, and really we had never worked with a collaborator that got so deeply involved in the songwriting process, because he cared so much and had such vision for every moment, and it was such an amazing guiding light for us the whole time of writing these songs, to have, Michael sort of became our litmus test and became our North Star in terms of really knowing what we kept shooting for and what the bar was, and it became a joyful challenge to try and hit the Michael Gracey target. And by the end of it, we're like, I know Michael's gonna let's do this thing. Like, it was fun to sort of eventually get to a point where we really started to try to be in lockstep with him in what his vision was and how we could help him achieve that, because ultimately that's what we were all on board for.
And it was a really interesting time.
No, that's it.
No.
You.
No, I remember the last word. Because it was an interesting time, because we have actually talked, and in that moment in our lives, this was my first film. It was, before it was their first film as well. And so we will never be able to recapture that moment again. And it's true. Like, we're all at a very different stage of our lives now. And I wouldn't be able to book these guys for 3 years to work with me. But I think, it's one of those special things, and we sort of all talked about it even before the film finished, when we were in post, and we would say, like, looking back, there was this sort of magic moment that brought about these songs, and when I get to sit and watch the film now, particularly with an audience, which I love, my favorite thing at the moment is just to sneak into theaters and watch it with a crowd. And the one thing you notice is you can immediately pick who's seen the film before, because just before the musical numbers, all of a sudden these people start leaning forward, and there's just this little ripple through the crowd. And it's so magical. And in that moment, when I see all those people leaning forward before the song starts, I think back to the times that we would spend around the piano, and it's all worthwhile.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you.